We've kind of moved past the alleged fight between Mark Pope and Pat Kelsey, but it seems like Kelsey still wants to tear Pope's face off, and I love it.
You are Locked On Kentucky, your daily podcast on the Kentucky Wildcats, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, what's going on, Big Blue Nation? Welcome on into Locked On Kentucky, your daily Kentucky Wildcats podcast. I'm your host, Lance Dawe, and on today's episode of Locked On Kentucky, we're going to talk about Pat Kelsey still wanting to fight Mark Pope. Not actually, but we'll get into it on today's show, as well as ranking Kentucky's rivalries. I'm going to give you 6 different rivalries the Cats have. We're going to go 6-1. Who's at the top? It might surprise you. Actually, I think it will based on today's conversation. Thank you guys so much for making Locked On Kentucky your first listen every single day. Want to remind everyone out there that we are free and available on all platforms. And if you are watching on YouTube, would greatly appreciate it if you subscribe to the show. And if you are listening on podcast, I would also appreciate it if you subscribe there as well. We have, ladies and gentlemen, we have surpassed the 18,000 subscriber mark on YouTube. Thank you so much to everybody who's tuning in there, and to the new people on podcast. A lot of people listening on podcast over these last few weeks. Thank you. Subscribe. Let me know what you think about the show, whether you're on Apple, Google, Spotify, what have you. Pat Kelsey still wants to fight Mark Pope. Well, not literally, and actually kind of at the end of the day, because according to an interview that he had a dream where in a UFC fight, he was scrapping with Pope. Now, in case you don't know what I'm talking about, a few weeks ago, a rumor surfaced online about Mark Pope and Pat Kelsey nearly coming to blows over 5-star guard Talon Kinney. It had to do with coming to see him at different times, and Pope was late. He was upset when Kelsey tried to go in, despite it not still being his time to visit. The two got into it in the yard, apparently. I don't think anything actually came physically of their altercation, and I think both of them would deny that. In fact, reports have also denied that as well. Nobody actually was throwing fists in a 5-star recruit's front yard. But what did happen was a verbal altercation. Both these guys were pretty upset, and the media has played it up. They've asked Pope about it. They've asked Kelsey about it, and they've been pretty professional. But Kelsey, during an interview here at some football game, if I'm not mistaken, a couple of days ago, jokingly described a dream where he and Mark Pope were fighting in a cage match. And this was the quote. The dream was, this was a UFC fight. Dana White, the president of UFC, is here. This place is packed just like this with 1,000 people. And I get there and I look up, and the headliner, the main event, the main bout, Kelsey versus Pope. Seconds later, after some lighthearted shadowboxing, according to an article, Kelsey complimented Pope, describing him as, quote, one of the finest human beings in coaching, end quote. Of course, Louisville's coach, Kelsey, has affection for Pope, and it only goes so far, though. Another interesting quote from Kelsey, and this is kind of where I want to draw back on something that I've been saying since a Louisville player spat on a former Kentucky player in the TBT over a year ago. Here's the quote from Kelsey. You see stuff on social media and things like that. Heck, man, the dude's a competitor, Kelsey said, talking about Pope. I'm a competitor. He's the head coach at one of the best programs in the country. So am I. We compete on the court. We compete in recruiting. We go at it. But you know what? There's honor among thieves. We really respect each other. I think Mark Pope is still one of the finest human beings in coaching, world-class father, world-class husband, and I still want to tear his face off when we play in November. I love that attitude from Pat Kelsey. In fact, I hope these two don't actually come to fisticuffs. These two actually don't start swinging at each other. But I hope there is a little bit of bad blood here that overcomes the politeness of these two as we wade deeper into their coaching tenures at these respective programs. I really do hope we get to see these two go at it on the court. Not throwing blows, but in terms of the competition that this rivalry brings. I want that fire back. And for Kelsey to sit there and say, he's a great guy, great husband, great father, competitor, love what I see online. But you know what? I had a dream about throwing down with him, and I'd love to tear his face off whenever he comes to Louisville in November. Love that. Could not love it anymore. This could be the best rivalry in all of college basketball. And I think a lot of people out there would go ahead and tell you it is. I'll give you my thoughts here later on in the show. And it should be, right? It should be the best rivalry in all of college basketball. There should be bad blood between these two programs year in and year out, regardless, of who is coaching these two programs. I want to see the life back in this thing. And last year, we got to see it at Rupp. This year, I am fascinated to see what it's like at Louisville. And now that they have a very good squad and they're coming off a year where they were very good, they, I think, overachieved. I think, according to a lot of different pundits out there, they're going to be projected to be pretty good this year. Top 20 team, according to Evan Mia. They're probably going to be a top 15, top 10 team, according to the AP and coaches poll. This is a really good program with a really good coach that wants to throw down with Kentucky, as it should be. This is how it should be between these two programs. They should want to tear each other's face off. I love it. Could not love it anymore. Let's rank Kentucky's rivalries here from number 6 to number 1. I'll give you my top 6 rivalries. We'll start at the bottom here in just a second. Before we do that, though, I'll tell you guys about our friends over at Quo, formerly Open Phone. One of the tools that helps make a huge difference for business owners is Quo, formerly Open Phone. It's the same great business phone system you've heard me talk about before, just with a new name. And here's why it matters. Every missed call is money left on the table. When every customer conversation counts, you need a phone system that keeps you connected 24/7. Quo is the #1 business phone system that streamlines customer communications. It works right through an app on your phone or your computer, so no more carrying 2 phones or relying on a landline. Their built-in AI agent is a game changer. It can answer after-hours calls, capture leads, and keep businesses moving even when they're not on the clock. And whether you're a solo operator juggling everything or part of a larger team, Quo makes it easy to stay responsive and professional. See why over 90,000 businesses trust Quo, formerly Open Phone. Get started for free and get 20% off your first 6 months at quo.com/lockedoncollege. That's QUO.com/lockedoncollege. And if you've got existing numbers with another service, Quo will port them over at no extra charge. No missed calls, no missed customers. All right, continuing along here on today's episode of Locked On Kentucky. Thank you guys so much for tuning in, making Locked On Kentucky your first listen every single day. Want to remind you guys again, we're free and available wherever you get your podcasts. Subscribe to the show. You're not going to want to miss this upcoming season. It's going to be great. We're going to see really solid rivalries like Kentucky versus Louisville. It's going to be a huge clash between the Cats and the Cardinals here early in this college basketball slate. Not the biggest fan of that, but what I am the biggest fan of are these 6 rivalries for Kentucky. We'll start here at the bottom, and we'll go number 6 to number 1. These are my 6 best rivalries right now for Kentucky. I don't care about what you think historically, as far as dating all the way back to the 60s or 70s. I am going off of maybe the last 20 years or so and saying, okay, what is the most relevant to Kentucky fans today? And to be honest with you, this is not going to deviate a ton, except for at the top, than what you guys think about these rivalries that Kentucky has. At number 6, we've got Indiana. Kentucky leads this series 10-4 since it started since 2000, I should say. They lead this series 10-4 since 2000, but it's 2-2 over the last 4 days. Obviously, Watford hitting that shot at Indiana a few years ago was big. Them beating Kentucky in the NCAA tournament was also infuriating. These two teams have not played since 2016, and now they've got a multi-year deal set up where they come to Rupp and they don't go to Assembly Hall for goodness knows how long. They're going to be playing at either a neutral site or in Lexington for a few years before that happens. I want to see this rivalry back, and frankly, I think DeVries, the new head coach there at Indiana, is going to make that program good again, especially offensively. They've kind of been dead in terms of not necessarily talent, maybe not even in terms of success at various years, but in terms of high-octane, entertaining basketball, Indiana hasn't really had that for a while. And I think they're going to have it again here for DeVries, and we know how Kentucky wants to play offensively. So I think these two teams moving forward are going to create a lot of different really fun matchups, and it's going to breed rekindle what was a rivalry here about a decade ago. This is more of a projection than anything here for Kentucky, that Indiana is going to be the 6th best rivalry. But I really do like where this rivalry can go in the years moving forward. The 5th best rivalry that Kentucky has currently is North Carolina. Now, I'd had some debate between UNC and the team that I have at my 4 spot, which we'll get to here in a little bit. But Kentucky has kind of controlled this thing as of late. UK leads the series 7-3 since 2011, and there have been some really, really good games, especially for Kentucky, in this one as of late. Monk going off, going insane in that Monk Fox year. UK blowing them out with Severe Wheeler and Oscar Tshiebwe in the CBS Sports Classic a few years ago. A really close game in Cal's final year with DJ Wagner and Rob Dillingham putting the final touches on that one. That was a really, really fun game, one of my favorite games that I've had the pleasure of covering here during my time at Locked On Kentucky. This is one of the best rivalries in all of college basketball, and it is the 5th best rivalry right now. Why is it the 5th? Well, it's the 5th because of what I think of these top 4 programs moving forward. I think they're going to be more competitive than the Tar Heels, and that's not to say UNC is going to be bad. I think that Kentucky's just going to have a decided advantage over them year in and year out. And so, as long as Hubert Davis is here at the helm. And so when you look at these 4 programs above them, I tend to think that they're going to be either more competitive or beating Kentucky more often, thus creating a little bit more of a rivalry and less of a beatdown year in and year out, right? And again, I'm not projecting UNC to be terrible or anything. I just really do think that Kentucky is on the come up and UNC is on a downward trend. Now, how quickly are they going to spiral? I don't know. This year is going to be a very telling year for that, and they come to Rupp, so we will see. UNC as the 5th best rivalry here for UK. Florida is the number 4 rivalry that I have here. This is partially a projection and partially because of what we've seen over the last several years. Kentucky leads this series 11-2, dating all the way back to 2019. Always a quality game, whether it is Kentucky losing at home in overtime a year or so ago, whether it's scoring 106 points on the eventual national champions in what I think was the best college basketball game last season between Kentucky and Florida. Kobe Brea going off in that game. Mark Pope's first big-time win in SEC play. Love what these two teams bring in terms of intensity and high-quality basketball year in and year out in the modern era of Kentucky basketball. This is a quality game, and moving forward, I really think it's going to continue to be a quality game because of how good these two programs are going to be and how their two offenses are going to face off against each other. Tough shot making, high octane, fast-paced analytics with Todd Golden and Mark Pope. I love this for Kentucky, that Florida can be a team that you have beaten, but I think it's going to be a little bit more competitive moving forward because of how good of a coach that Todd Golden is and how good of a roster that team is going to have. Kentucky going to Gainesville, man, this year is going to be rough. I'll tell you that. That is going to be rough for Kentucky, absolutely. So that's number 6 through number 4, Indiana, North Carolina, Florida. We will get to our top 3 here in just a second. Before we do it, though, tell you guys about our friends over at FanDuel. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel has an offer that you don't want to miss. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. Pick a bet, put down $5, and if it hits, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love how FanDuel gives me so many different ways to play. I've built parlays, tried player props, and even followed the live games during weekends. I really like watching football here to kind of keep tabs on my fantasy football lineup, and FanDuel helps me stay engaged, helps me put a little something that's riding on the action. Whether you're a casual fan or you really like diving into the stats like me, FanDuel makes the game day experience so much easier. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and get started. All right, wrapping up today's episode of Locked On Kentucky. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. We've got you 3 rivalries, Indiana, UNC, and Florida. And now let's get to our top 3 rivalries currently for Kentucky basketball. At number 3, we have Duke. Now, I put out a poll on Twitter just to make sure I wasn't crazy, asking you guys, hey, what's the bigger rivalry for Kentucky, Duke or UNC? Pretty sure it was Duke, and you guys resoundingly so believe that Duke is the bigger rivalry for Kentucky than North Carolina, and I would tend to agree. These teams have only played 6 times since 2001, and Duke has won 4 of those contests. This last year, Kentucky shocked the college basketball world by not just staying alongside Cooper Flag and the Duke Blue Devils, but closing that game out. That was incredibly impressive. Probably my favorite win ever doing this show. The feelings that I had, the emotion that I had after that game, it's hard to describe the euphoria after that victory. To see Kentucky take down what was supposed to be the most talented team in all of college basketball, the biggest team in all of college basketball with the height that they had in their front court, the strength, the dominance that they had defensively, and Kentucky dropped 77 points on them and beat them in Atlanta. That was an iconic Mark Pope game, it will end up being an iconic game for Mark Pope and this program. Huge win, and I can only assume that Duke, whenever they get their chance, wants to get their get back as quickly as possible. In fact, if you want to think about what the ACC SEC challenge looks like a year from now, who knows? Wildcats might be going to Cameron, and that would be a very tough spot to be in. Duke is and you also have the history of this rivalry, by the way, with Leitner and everything. This is could be one of the premier rivalries in all of sports, and yet they don't play the game enough. I think they should play the game more. And the fact that these two teams have only played 6 times since 2001, and everybody and their mother agrees, yeah, it's one of Kentucky's biggest still, says a lot about what these two programs think of each other. At number 2, this is where I may lose some of you guys. And it's okay. Because I think Louisville is the second best rivalry that Kentucky has right now. And to be honest with you, because of what's happened over the last 5-6 years, I don't know if it's particularly close, right? Kentucky leads Louisville 10-2 dating back to 2013. This team in Louisville has been dead for half a decade. I wasn't even going to pull this up. I am going to pull this up now that I'm thinking about it. We'll go over to Ken Palm. We'll take a look at Louisville here real quick. Scroll down. Oh, look, there they are at 28. So many spots further down behind Kentucky. They went over the course of a 5-year span from 2021 to 2024, 13-7, 13-19, 4-28, 8-24. And then they went 27-8 last year, got through an incredibly easy ACC, and then they got 93 points dropped on their head in Rupp Arena. They still could not hold this Kentucky team. Even when Kentucky has sucked, they have still managed to dominate this Louisville team at various points. And this rivalry with Pitino and Calipari used to mean something so special. And then Kenny Payne and the final 2 Chris Mack years sort of killed that vibe because they sucked. And now they might be good again. And that can only be good for this rivalry and for the future of these two programs, for them to both be quality and for them to be both competing at an incredibly high level. Until it's probably going to change this year. Until we see some hate, some real bad blood between these two going on for more than one season, which, again, probably going to happen this year. This is the second best rivalry that Kentucky has, because let me tell you who I cannot stand right now, who I want to beat every single time that we step out on the floor. Not just close, I want to run them out of the building, which Kentucky has been able to do so against Louisville the last few years, so I've kind of become numb to it. The team that I want Kentucky to destroy every single year are the Tennessee Volunteers. That is the biggest rivalry right now that Kentucky has, in my opinion. Kentucky leads this 7-5, dating back to 2021. You had 2 wins against the Vols last year, and a team that you weren't supposed to beat, right? Kentucky shorthanded at Rupp, shot 50% from three earlier that year. Shorthanded in Knoxville. You were still shooting 50% from three. Jax, Almanor, Noah, those guys came up big. Mark Pope showed that he could really compete against Rick Barnes and the Volunteers. Got 2 big-time wins. And then the third matchup, you could not find a bucket against Tennessee. And it was a crushing way for your season to end. And I understand that a lot of focus went into, for Kentucky, well, you know what? This was a great year, and it was. It was a really good year for Mark Pope to start things off. Love the direction of this program. Awesome year, awesome wins. Nobody really sat there and took a moment to digest. We just lost to one of our biggest rivals, arguably the second biggest, in frustrating fashion in the Sweet 16, and we could have definitely gone further. I hate Tennessee. I cannot stand them. And I hope that this year, Kentucky curb stomps them. Same for these other 5 programs, by the way. But I hope Kentucky curb stomps them. I want revenge for what happened in the Sweet 16. That is the reason why I have it number 1 right now. Because of the hate that I have, and I know a lot of other fans have out there, for that loss in the Sweet 16. I want revenge. I want my get back. Louisville, I think, is going to come around this year. I think that whenever Kentucky faces off against Duke again, it's going to be awesome. Florida, twice this year, is going to be great. North Carolina and Rupp's going to be good. Indiana and Rupp's going to be good. But I want to beat Tennessee more than anything right now to get back at them. Because to be honest with you, based on the Tennessee fans that I've talked to, they don't really care. They care more about football than anything. They like the win. They support the win. But they don't really care. They're more concerned about what Joey Aguilar is doing, throwing picks to Georgia. They're more concerned about what Josh Heupel's doing on any given Saturday. That's where they put their money, right? Tennessee fans do. And obviously they care about the basketball program. They care about the women's basketball program, but they don't care as much as we do about this sport, about my sport, college basketball. And I would give anything to see them run them out of the gym every opportunity they get this upcoming year, whether that's in the regular season, the SEC tournament, the NCAA tournament, doesn't matter. I want to see them put them through the floor. I want to see them dig that grave. Louisville and Tennessee, I think it's very close. But because of what happened in the tournament, I give the nod to the Vols as the biggest rivalry Kentucky has right now. It's close, it's competitive, and we want revenge. Let me know what you think in the comments below. I know a lot of you might disagree with that. And you know what? That's okay. It's just a ranking from a guy on the internet, right? It's not rage bait, but sound off in the comments below. That's going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Kentucky. You can follow the show on Twitter at Locked On UK. Follow me on Twitter at @LanceDawe_, and follow the show over on Instagram. That is at Kentucky Podcast. Any questions, comments, concerns? Appreciate it if you drop them in the comments below. I will see you all tomorrow for another episode of Locked On Kentucky. Hope you guys have a great rest of your day, and God bless.